everyone, I'm Maddy, the founder of the Flexpo event series. I'm here to talk to you today about the Flexpo Business event for HR leaders, and I'm joined by a renowned HR icon, David Blackburn, the Chief People Officer of the Financial Services Compensation Scheme. Hi, David.
Hi, Maddy. Lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you too. Thank you very much for your time.
My
so
pleasure.
The Financial Services Compensation Scheme are a sponsor of Flexpo, our candidate event, but actually they've won awards for the excellent work they've done in the flexible working space and for being a truly inclusive workplace. So David is joining us at the event to talk about the future of human-centric leadership and why that's so important. So I've asked David to speak to me today to give you a bit of an insight into the types of things we'll be covering on the day, and hopefully to share some tools and some tips to help you along your way to the new normal, whatever that might look like. So David, if we can just kick off, I'd just like your views on why flexible working is so important.
I think that, I guess my starting point is that flexible working, which has been central to our culture at the Financial Services Compensation Scheme, has been a debate and an argument and a business discussion for the last 5, 6, 7, probably longer number of years. And one of the really interesting things I think about the COVID-19 crisis is that whilst obviously it has been tragic on all manner of levels, the positive thing, there are many positive opportunities that it presents. One of them is that it's been a massive accelerator of the discussion, debate around flexible working. Because actually, if you think about when I was speaking at Flexpo last year, and people putting their hands up in the audience, roundtable discussion, how do I build the business case for flexible working? What have we all been doing? What have we actually all been doing for the last 3 to 4 months? So I think that what business has recognised and is continuing to recognise is that those arguments around this work can't be done flexibly, can't do these things remotely, it might work for those organisations, it won't work for my organisation. Those arguments are completely redundant. You look very, very silly, I think, if you're a senior HR practitioner or business leader and you suddenly say to people, oh, I'm sorry, flexible working is not going to work, is it? I mean, they will say, what do you think we've all been doing? So I think that now where the opportunity is how organisations navigate their way into that landscape, a new world of hybrid working where you're going to have some people in the office, some people at home, dispersed teams, the end of the 9 to 5 and people working, do we actually need core hours? So I think there's some really big fundamental business questions, and I think that Flexpo is such a great opportunity to learn from each other, and also to learn from organisations like the Financial Services Compensation Scheme, who had already embraced the benefits of flexible working and are already starting to think about our new working environment post COVID-19.
Thank you. I think that's so key. And one of the most interesting things that I found when I first met you was not unimportant, you're probably going to shoot me down in flames for saying that, but when I asked you what your flexible working policy looks like, you said to me it's very simple, it's ask your line manager. And actually the work that you've done as an organisation to get to where you've got and to have won the awards that you've got and to have the success that you've got as a workforce through Flex has actually been achieved through culture changes rather than frameworks and policies. Can you talk to us a bit more about that?
Absolutely, and that I am a passionate believer in this. I think that we have to uncouple ourselves and unshackle ourselves from seeing this as a flexible working as a problem that we have to solve, as opposed to an opportunity that we have to embrace. And I think that the starting point for a lot of organisations, which, and I say this in the nicest way possible, where they get it wrong is that they start in the wrong place, and they start with the legislation, and they start with a policy, and they start with a massively detailed process and a great long form, and so they don't make flexibility accessible. I also think that organisations sometimes struggle because they feel like they need to have the perfect answer. They need to, you know, so if you're a global organization, so often people will say, David, well, that's great for you at the Financial Services Compensation Scheme. You employ just over 200 people. You've got one office location. You're based in the city. Well, of course it works for you and it's straightforward. I've got 200,000 people and they're spread all across the whole of Europe. And how on earth am I going to come up with a flexible working policy that covers all of those bases? And the simple answer is you don't have to. Is that you can define a set of principles. So as you know, the reason we do have a flexible working policy, we do have one, you know, sitting dustily in a corner somewhere, because our actual flexible working principles are just like 5 or 6 sort of key statements. You know, ask, as you just said, ask your line manager, make sure it works for you and the team, make sure you've got the right resources to do the things that you do, make sure that you're available to communicate, be flexible within your flexibility. So actually, if people need you to come in for a meeting or change your schedule, you know, you should accommodate that. But it isn't any more complicated than that. And I think we give, you know, we give our managers and teams we give them the guidance and we give them the tools. We then let them work it out. And because they're the people who know best. And I'm always saying to organizations, you know, if you don't know what the answer is for your whole 200,000 workforce, try it, get a team, find one team. If you've got one team that's crying out to do it, let them do it, trial it. You know, we are now thinking about how we build back better into the new working environment. And we said to our people, we don't expect that to start until September. We want to give you the rest of the year to start thinking about it. But actually, in August, my team, we're going to go back. We're going to go back because we're going to trial and our own new rota and a new approach for the 16 of us, how we work. So I am passionate about when I'm very often asked, oh my God, you know, where did you even start? And it's all so difficult. And I'm like, is it really that difficult? I don't think it is. And I think, interestingly, as an organization, you know, we mobilized in lockdown incredibly quickly as a result of that. And we haven't lost a day's productivity as a result.
Which is phenomenal. So as an HR leader, if you can't rely on, not rely on, if you can't kind of fall back on, you know, here's the golden script for how you implement flex across the organization, and when you're, especially now when we, you know, everybody's had to migrate to remote working, which is one form of flexible working, what's the kind of biggest piece of advice you could give to other HR leaders as for how they pave the way of a new flexible future for an organization that perhaps hasn't been?
The absolute number one thing you have to do is engage your people. Is you engage your people and ask them. Now, don't say, I think you have to structure that conversation, because what you might end up with. Now, I already know we ran pulse surveys during the course of the lockdown, just asking people how connected they were feeling, how well supported they were feeling, how easy or not they found it to switch off. And actually what we saw over time was actually during the crisis, people's engagement has gone up, actually, their overall connection. And we've worked really hard to maintain that. But one of the reasons I know that's true is because we ask them. And equally, we're not saying, we took a decision very early on in May to say, we are going to keep things as they are with everyone working remotely. We have no expectation of people returning to us to run an office until September. And at that stage, we didn't know what how the landscape was going to unfold. What we wanted to do is give our employees certainty. And we also committed to say, and every stage of the journey, we're going to ask you, we're going to engage with you and say, how do you think it works? My number one piece of advice is ask people, you know, is say, and even if you started and said, you know, let's give people some options. If condensed working was an option, would you be interested in doing it? If you know, if we decided that we wanted to move to a fully hybrid model, you know, how many days in the office would you like to work? 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, you can structure the conversation, but my starting point is ask your people, because that's the best way to build a flexible working environment that works for as many people as possible.
Thank you very much. And the topic of, without giving too much away before the event, the topic of human-centric leadership. What does human-centric leadership mean to you?
I think that we are entering. We had already. This is a journey again. I think that has been accelerated. This idea that that what we want from leaders is their technical expertise or their subject matter knowledge, and increasingly, actually, what people want from their leaders is emotional intelligence, is an interest, a genuine interest and understanding in them as human beings, is being able to help people navigate not just their careers, but both the balance of their work and home lives. One of the ironic things about the situation I think we find ourselves in is that whilst we've been forced to be distant, actually, in a way, we've become much more intimate. We've seen into each other's homes. We've seen everybody's children and dogs. And, you know, I only on the interview the other day was saying, I feel intimately acquainted with my CEO's children, especially her son, Alex, who I've never met, but, you know, I can tell you he's tasted biscuits and snacks from the number of times he's appeared in calls. So human-centric leadership is you know, is what it says on the tin. I think, you know, people want to be able to bring their whole selves to work, and we've been living in this isn't my phrase, it's a Deloitte phrase, the flow of life. I quite like that. We've been living in the flow of life. We've been living in the midst of our home lives, and I think that, you know, I think that's a really positive. I think that's a positive thing that I don't think we want to let go of. But I also recognise that's something that a lot of leaders haven't been. It's new. They haven't been asked to do that. And if that's not your natural space, if you find having those types of more intimate, personal coaching conversations, you know, what are the skills that I think we need leaders to have? That's some of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about.
Thank you. And just one other on that, I know I've said we won't talk about this too much, but I'm going to ask you anyway. One of the biggest challenges for HR when we're talking about flexible working prior to COVID, and I think it will raise its ugly head again, is HR often are on board. HR get it, they want it, they appreciate the value in it, they understand the impact it will have on the bottom line, on gender equality, on disability equality, on, you know, the various factors, but often they struggle to get buy-in from management. So if we're actually talking about not just revolutionising workplaces, but actually revolutionising leadership and what that looks like, how can HR leaders support their own leadership teams to become emotionally, forgive me, I can't remember the expression that you just used, but to become human-centric?
Yeah, so I think how HR leaders have to do it is that they have to role model it. I think you have to be a living, breathing example, and I think with every change in culture in an organisation, 5 years ago, culture, well, maybe a little longer than 5 years ago, 10 years ago. 10 years ago, culture was not on the agenda for CEOs. Culture was some fluffy thing that didn't have any business benefits, and it was some load of old nonsense that the HR director talked about. Every single piece of research from the last 2 to 3 years, every survey, Gartner surveys, Forbes surveys, McKinsey surveys will say to you, culture is in the top 3 things that CEOs are concerned about. And human-centric leadership is a key facet of how an organization operates. How it feels in the space in an organization is set by the leadership population and the way that it engages with its people. And I think, you know, for HR leaders, you know, we've got to role model that. You know, you've got to be, because I think what invariably in my experience, you know, when people see the real business benefits, that's when they go, that's why it's important. The reason culture has become a top 3 agenda item for CEOs and C-suites is because everybody now sees that you create the right culture, create a high trust culture with high levels of engagement. Oh, what a surprise, you deliver better service to your customers. And if I work in a not-for-profit organization, so that's our number 1 goal. role, but equally, if you work in a commercial organisation, it drives bigger profits. That's its bottom line. So I think the role of HR is to role model it and to equally make the connection to the business benefits that it brings.
David, thank you so much. You put things so beautifully as opposed to how I say them. So thank you so much for your time today.
Absolutely,
we're really
my
looking
pleasure.
forward. Thank you. We're really looking forward to hearing you speak on the 13th of September. So anybody that wants to hear more of this, please do go to flexpobusiness.vfairs.com to register, and we'll look forward to seeing you all there. Thank you, David.
Thank you. Bye-bye.